um, how the demotion of the American man has fed the politics of misogyny. Here's how I've seen it. First of all, as I've said on other videos, I really love old movies and have a DVR that I use for my breaks to enter into different worlds. And I see a lot of movies from 30s, 40s, 50s, and I observe that that the power relations of that society were very much more favorable to the American man in comparison with the power of American women. That is the case today. It was a man's world in say, the 40s. And anyway, I'll just say the 40s. It was completely acceptable and even, a sign of proper male spirit that if a good-looking woman walked by, she would get a wolf whistle. I don't see people doing that now. And what's been most striking to me, I think, was sort of like a bit shocking, is that in the movies of, say, the 40s, our hero, in his passionate desire to have this woman yield up her love to him, can force his kisses on her against resistance. And the movie is okay with that. That's sort of one of the things that comes along with the male dominance that's more or less assumed. The idea that the man of the house had an authoritative meaning, widely accepted in the culture, that isn't there now. There have been a lot of changes that have the effect of taking power and status away from American men. I think this is a good thing. But whether what I'm thinking it's a good thing or not, what's central here for this conversation is that it's a major blow to some men who have absorbed from their culture an idea of the man's role, and then they find that the world around them has changed in a way so that traditional male role of dominance is no longer one that he can play. There's a whole lot of dimensions to this of how American men have found themselves wanting a power and status that is no longer being offered to them. But we can see how that is, and for a particular subculture of men, I think partly it's got to do with the world of the blue collar male, which is a different male ethos than the American middle class man. But in addition, there has been a loss of economic power for the American man. The rules have changed so that women are no longer necessarily so economically dependent and therefore controllable by men. But also for for the American worker that has only a high school degree or less, there has been a real fall. Not only are women in the workforce no longer regarded as taking jobs from a man, but only a high school degree puts one in a class that's been making a smaller and smaller amount of the American national wealth over the last, from the 50s. The guy on the shop floor now gets like 1/300th of the money for the CEO. Whereas it used to be something like 20, or maybe it eventually got to 40, but it exploded the gap between what people further up in the power structure, and particularly all of them would have had college educations. I mean, like the governor of Pennsylvania these days, excellent program. I mean, college education isn't required to do a good job at a lot of things that require a college degree. But anyway, those American men who have not come out of high school with the intention or with the capabilities or whatever of becoming college educated, as this economy has evolved, have shunted themselves down to the bottom of the pecking order. Not the man of the house they grew up expecting to be. So one can feel for them. American culture hasn't always conveyed to certain parts of the male subculture the value of certain things that lead one to go to college and get a college degree. And then we have evidence that for a lot of women, men have become unnecessary. They can be self-supporting, and the men are sort of further down. So instead of women marrying for economic security like in the old days, they've got their economic security, and the men are looking more like it might pull them down. That's a difficult transition, very obviously going to be very painful, and it's only being compounded by the fact that whereas when I went to college, I don't remember what the figures were, but most of the people in getting college degrees were men. I mean, it was a far cry from the way it was in my parents' generation in terms of the men so much outnumbering the women, and particularly in getting advanced degrees. But now it's actually in the opposite direction. Women are something, between 55 and 60% of undergraduates. I mean, that's an enormous transformation, and particularly when the gap is opening up between the status in our society of people who have are working class high school degree versus the middle class that people get to with a college degree. Anyway, I've been trying hard for years to understand what drives what's emerged on the political right. This is just a small piece of it that has occurred to me recently, that there's probably a connection between a world in which the Me Too movement flowers, becomes powerful almost overnight. No more forced kisses. And a woman takes Donald Trump to court for having sexually violated her and then defamed her, and succeeds. and in which the whole balance of power between men and women has shifted toward giving women a kind of equality, a greater degree of equality. And in some ways, it's in some parts of the society, uh, women having perhaps an advantageous position. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but going on when women are getting most of the college degrees. So I think this may help to explain a part of what's happened politically. A lot of men have grown up with the expectation of playing a particular role in relation to women, which had a lot of status and power and control and privilege that's gone away. And that's not easy. That's not easy, particularly in those parts of the culture that are not particularly good at making transitions when circumstances change. So I think that maybe the effect, the anger and the frustration and the rage, and there is something that comes up against women, understandably, when one's expected privileges and powers have been transferred in some measure to women. There's a misogyny on the American right that's visible. It's not the only thing that drives stuff, but that Dobbs decision that Alito articulated, overturning Roe versus Wade, somewhat contemptuous of positions that were different from his religiously founded beliefs, but also seemingly indifferent to the issue of the rights, opportunities, and standing of women. There's a misogyny there. And I think it is an asset from the point of view of some men who have endured this painful loss of status and power, privilege in relation to women. My guess is also that when the Hollywood tape came out and Trump was there boasting, mind you, of because he was a star, he has the right to sexually assault women on what I assume he must know is to some extent a pretense that they just let him. They'll let you do anything, he said. Well, we know from from the women who's come forward, including what's her name, who's won the suit. Her name escapes me at the moment. We know that they didn't just let him. But my guess is that that Trump's doing that and boasting about it is something that makes him more appealing toward men who have suffered a certain kind of loss of status and power and ability to dominate and maybe even abuse women, and are angry at the loss. Yeah, I'm imagining that with some men, Trump gets extra points for getting away with so much for so long. Who knows what his relationship with apparently a friend, Jeffrey Epstein. I don't claim to know anything, but we know from the porn stars and all that this is a guy who does not really honor women, which leads me to think about what can be a way forward, or at least something to be tried. I grew up in that world where I've had to surrender some of the things I thought were true about men and women and how it should be. I had football coaches that used talking to us as girls if we weren't tough enough and strong enough and brave enough. That in a way that was basically a projection onto the other sex of the parts of ourselves of vulnerability that the male culture simply wouldn't allow. So the male role has always been a mixed bag. We got the extra status that we didn't deserve, but we also were socialized to be desensitized in ways that would make us more valuable in a world in which men are called to have been always traditionally been called upon to perform certain scary functions in a dangerous world. So that's another thing. But so there are reasons why this imbalance developed that was unhealthy in some ways because the world it developed in was unhealthy. But we've moved, fortunately, to a society in which the gifts and capacities and virtues and strengths of women are celebrated in a way that they weren't. I remember the first time I saw a really good women's softball team. I'd grown up with the idea of, like to throw with a girl, like you step forward with the wrong foot, that's throwing like a girl. And a lot of girls somehow actually did in my generation. But, later in life, I saw this third base woman, if that's the right word, rifle a shot to first base. I mean, they can throw like that? I didn't know that. The girls of my generation, all they had open to them was to be cheerleaders. So I've had to lose some of that, and I think it's been good, really good for me. But the other thing is, and I know there are lots of reasons why the changes in American society have not been advantageous for men, but there's a greater fulfillment, I believe, to be had in a relationship between men and women that's really based on equality and on acknowledging the reality of that women are just as whatever of value you want to say as men, and not that there aren't differences, but the differences aren't between better and worse, more worthy of respect or less worthy of respect. I suppose that it wouldn't be easy for people who get brought up with some of this old cultural image of a man's world, and sometimes a man's got to do what a man's got to do, and all those things, which I've enjoyed the heroic male stuff all my life. But there's also a reality about the vulnerability of men who are not superior to women, but have their own set of fine qualities, and for men and women to meet on the basis of genuine appreciation of the unique qualities of the other, and mutual respect. Um, can these blue collar men that seem to be kind of angry and misogynistic, can they move from anger at what's been lost to being able to uh, build relationship um, and marriage and uh, the sacred space of lovers based on fully embracing one another's humanity, um, rather than based on the old image of male superiority. Well, those are some of my thoughts. I hope that they were of interest. I think this may be one of the many factors that feed into the toxicity of our politics today. Thank you.